If you're a portrait photographer that lives in a small town, or maybe just one with no mountains or interesting architecture, you gotta get creative with your location scouting. Thing is, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Here's some tips to help you find some beautiful and meaningful photo locations. Tip number 1, do a quick Google search. This kind of sounds like common sense. That's because it is. Now, there are a couple of keywords that you can search that will help you out in most towns. It kind of depends on the colors and textures that you're going for, but here's some examples. When you're in Google, type in blank in your town. In those blanks, you could put parks, you could put farms, you could put orchards, you could put antique shops, museums, art galleries, nature reserves, landmarks, and hiking trails. Hiking trails are actually one of my favorite ones, and pretty much any small town has some pretty good hiking trails. Now, on top of using Google to find your locations, you can also utilize it to make sure that you don't show up to your location at 5 p.m. and find out that it closed at 12. Trust me, I've been there, and it's not good. All right, now tip number 2, be sure to ask around. Now, in a lot of businesses, it's unethical to ask your competition for help, but it's not like that in photography. I'm sure you know lots of people that you follow on Instagram that are photographers in your area, and I'm sure they've probably got some sweet spots that they would love to share with you. So DM them, email them, however you can get into contact with them, and just politely ask what are some of their favorite spots to take photos. All right, tip number 2, check out your client's yard. Yeah, their backyard. Listen, I have shot some of my favorite portrait sessions in somebody's backyard. And they actually always really love the photos too because, I mean, it's their backyard. It tells their story and it just has so much more meaning to them when it's a place that they can connect with so well. So if you're thinking about location, just send your client a text, ask them to take some pictures of their backyard so you can see what it looks like, what you have to work with. But be sure to ask them to take the pictures at the time of day that you plan to shoot. That way you can see what the lighting looks like as well. There doesn't have to be a whole lot going on in their backyard. It can seriously be really beautiful. If you're not convinced, check out some of these photos that I took in a recent backyard photo shoot. Side note, if you're interested in getting the preset that I use on those photos, I will leave a link in the description where you can download it for free. All right, step number 3, utilize bokeh. Bokeh, or background blur, is a powerful tool in portrait photography. You know, if you ask me, I think the majority of the photos in a photo shoot should have backgrounds with little detail or just blurred out, because in portrait photography, I mean, the focus of the portrait is the person and not the background. Now, there should be some photos where the background has lots of detail and maybe the background's really cool, but these should be the minority. Trust me, the person you are shooting is way more worried about how they are presented in the photo, not the background. Okay, so how can you achieve some beautiful blurry backgrounds? I have a few tips for you. Number 1, use a wide aperture. Sorry, that sounded really Oklahoman. The wider your aperture, the smaller the field of focus, which will in turn create more blur. Now keep in mind that if you have a very low aperture, like maybe 1.8 or lower, it's probably going to be hard to focus sometimes because that field of focus is so narrow, it's going to be kind of hard for the camera to hit it right on every single time. Number 2, use a longer focal length. I could go into detail about the science of this, but the longer the focal length, the more compression there's going to be on the background. So let's say you shot f2.8 at 35 millimeters and f2.8 at 70 millimeters. 70 millimeters is going to have a more blurry background because it compresses it more. Number 3, add more distance between the subject and the background as much as you can. I mean, that's just how focus works. Number 4, prime lenses are great for this because they typically allow for a wider aperture than zoom lenses. If you want some of my recommendations on great prime lenses, you can check out my kit and I'll leave a link in the description. So it might take a little bit of research and a little bit of looking around, but I guarantee that you can find some beautiful photo spots in any town, no matter how small. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. I would love to answer them. And if you like this video, if it helped you out, give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. I will be releasing one of these videos every week. I'll see you next time.